What is up guys, Wraec here with a new video, and today with a guide for the Meta Wilder cheese team. Haven't seen a guide out there yet, and I thought, okay, let's talk about this, what it is, how you can beat it, which mechanics it uses, all of that stuff will be in this video. So first of all, let's start with a little demonstration. So maybe this is you, just got up all of your Celestial Hypogean heroes and you faced one of those Wilder comps with Bonnie in there with a few heroes that haven't really been meta for quite some time. We see Tazi in there last season, great, this season, a little bit meh. Damien, well, if you want to run Diamel, okay, and Talene, and you think, okay, my squad is easily going to beat that. You start the fight, and well, it's not exactly going in your direction, pretty much so immediately, and after just 6 seconds, that was not on double speed by the way, your team is just gone, and you were absolutely destroyed by that comp. And the reason for that, well, that is something we're going to explore today. So what even is this team? To understand what is happening here, let us talk about all of the possibilities that there are, because when I talk about the Meta Wilder cheese team, it is not essentially one set team of 5 heroes that I'm talking about, because there are quite a lot of variations for those teams, some hero changes, some changes in the damage dealers as well, and a few teams that all pretty much use the same mechanics. So what I want to cover today are all those teams that focus around the same mechanic. And of course, it is a Wilder team, so oftentimes the baseline that you see will be a Tazi, there will regularly be a Damien in there, and then 1/3 Wilder hero. There is often variation in this. I have seen comps like the one before where we see Lily May often on the Wilder tile then. Lorsan was also used quite often, and other options for Wilder heroes that can be used include Ulmus. And this is usually already like the main part of this team. And then you have 2 slots on the Wilder tiles, which are not displayed sadly when doing this comp, but you know, they are right here and there. And on those tiles, then you see different heroes, damage dealers usually. Options that I saw for those tiles include Siren, regularly Bonnie, because we have Tazi in there, we have quite a few of magic damage. Bonnie can be used, so let's put Bonnie in there. And you can use, by the way, if you put Ulmus in there, you can use the true damage conversion here, so that is very, very nice. And then we have 1 slot open. And quite recently, Athalia has actually made her way into such teams, also on the Wilder tile. I think Atraxi used that first, and then a team could, for example, look like this. Artifacts. Well, most of the time they use Storm Strike spell, because Storm Strike spell is a very, very, very difficult artifact to deal with unless you put Siren on your team. So now we have this team, but what does make it so threatening? Well, let's take a look at the Wilder skill tree, because that is what we are essentially going to use. So the Wilder skill tree over here, level 37 on my account, has a ton of effects. And one of those effects is that all concealed heroes, which are the prime carriers, they enter the concealed state, and while they are concealed, they are invincible. Invincible makes them immune to all damage, all control effects, and they can't even be targeted by any effects. Meaning, for example, if you were to target them with Sylvina and put the mark on them, which Sylvina targets heroes in a symmetrical position. So in this situation, she would put the mark initially on Bonnie, but once the battle starts, we can actually see, well, we should probably put Siren in there, otherwise this will be very, very quickly over. Once the battle actually starts, we can see she doesn't go there. She actually tries to attack somebody else. She teleports over to the position and then immediately rushes over to attack somebody else. Just because, well, this Bonnie, she can't be targeted. She can't be hit. She teleports to the position and then reselects Talene as an opponent. So that is what is meant by untargetable here. Invincible is pretty much the strongest state your hero can be in. I mean, essentially nothing can do anything to your hero. Such a mechanic is inherently overpowered. So there is a balancing side to this tree, which is every time a non-summoned ally, keep that in mind, non-summoned ally is defeated, this concealed state duration is reduced by 3 seconds. So every time one of your heroes dies, duration is reduced by 3 seconds, and the balancing part here really is, well, you only have 3 heroes on the board at any given time, essentially, because, well, 2 of those heroes are invincible, they are untargetable, none of the enemy heroes will focus them, so the focus really comes down to the 3 heroes that are targetable, making it a little bit more likely that they really die. And I guess AFK Journey decided this was a sufficient way to balance this, and in my opinion, I think they really forgot that that there are heroes that don't die. And with that, let's take a look again at our team. So looking back at the team that we just built, well, we used a few heroes that can't die or are very hard to kill, starting off with Damien. Damien is never really on the board. He just goes back, he will move over here once the battle starts, and he will just send his inventions. And the thing about this is, he builds a toy chariot that will be on the battlefield. The toy chariot is a summoned ally, and we already know only non-summoned allies reduce the cooldown, and Damien can't be killed. So that is one hero less that can even be killed. Then we have Tazi. What's the case for Tazi? Well, Tazi can, in theory, be killed, but when she loses a certain amount of HP, she will enter into a butterfly state, meaning you really would have to overkill her to even be able to remove her from the board immediately. There are some interactions where Siren lifts her into the air and apparently she becomes killable. That seems to be a bug at the moment. But you see, she doesn't die. She enters the butterfly state, and in this form, she's invincible as well. And then we have Ulmus. Ulmus on this board is really the only hero that can really die, but there are other options which we can look into. Ulmus has the advantage that as soon as he takes a certain amount of damage, he will actually move to the backline, which, where is it? I think it's in his ult actually. Yeah. When Ulmus' ratio drops below 30% for the first time, retreats to the backline. And then he will just move to the backline, making it a little bit harder to kill him. There are other options though. And one option that I want to show you guys is actually Hewen. Hewen does not have an invincibility effect by herself, but in her charm bonus we can see becomes invincible and unaffected for 5 seconds when HP drops below 30% for the first time. Keep in mind, Hewen, when she's one-shot, from above 30% HP, so let's say she's at 40%, gets hit by a Thalia and directly sent down to 0, she will not become invincible. So in my opinion, Hewen a little bit of a liability for this team. So one other thing that you can do is actually use a hero from the Wilder faction on the Tal. For example, we could put Lily May there, as we just saw, and then use a hero from another faction. There we actually find a bit more of a selection. Don't use Thorin, by the way. Thorin actually does get defeated. Some people kind of misunderstood that, but he does get defeated. From my testing, that does reduce your cooldown when he goes down. He's such a nice hero for that, other than that. But the thing is also says he resurrects. While the wording of this can be certainly incorrect, I noticed that I got a shorter concealment time when this hero is on the board. Other options, well, we already saw Thalia. A Thalia can actually never really die. Many people prefer to use her on the Tal, but she is actually an option to be used outside as well, because she won't be defeated. She will just stop and become her lance. And the other options that you can use is actually Talene. Talene will also transform into a ball of flame. When she is defeated and during this stage, she cannot be attacked. And she's not considered alive, and she can restore 8% of her max HP per second. And while this does sound pretty similar to Thorin, as I just said, well, the wording can be a little bit weird, I didn't see a reduction of the time of the concealment with her, which is kind of weird. I mean, I guess she's kind of on the board, but so is Thorin, so it's a little bit weird in that regard. Lastly, last option, actually Scarlita, interestingly enough. If you build her, we recently talked about how her 15 seconds in the air are actually kind of horrible, but for this you get 15 seconds with her in the air, so 15 seconds where she cannot be defeated. Keep in mind there is a little bit of a drawback to this, because we have this, or she will come down when there are 2 or fewer surviving non-summoned allies besides her. And as far as I have in my testing, Damien doesn't count. So those would be 2, and she would in this situation really rely on that Tarsi to be alive. If that Tarsi gets killed, Skalita immediately comes down, will likely be immediately killed as well, at which point you are guaranteed to lose because you lost 2 heroes, concealment time will be down 6 seconds, so your heroes will basically be available to be attacked immediately. So that is like the strategy here. What can you do to counter that, and which, well, before we go into that, maybe which of those forms do I personally consider the strongest? My personal favorite is this one. I would like to really replace that Bonnie with Siren, but I noticed, well, it's Bonnie with Bonnie, it's a little bit better really, even though Siren would counter the enemy artifact, which could be nice. Athalia in here is actually really cool, just like an additional damage dealer. If you have Skalita like at a really high Paragon, which I personally don't, there is some merit to using her here, because the thing is, sometimes that Tarsi really gets overkilled, and you can give her extra defenses with Skalita, so that kind of works very well. I agree on that. So maybe if you have a high Skalita, not that much of a high Athalia, I would experiment using Skalita, because that can be very efficient. We can maybe try to run that against the other comp, but I'm not sure we can win. We have to see. So we can try to do this. We are a little bit at a Paragon disadvantage, I fear. So that will be a little bit of a problem. But let's see. One Wilder Cheese against the other. In a very interesting fight here. Both our storm strikes hitting quite a lot. And then it just ends with us just like going down and just waiting for this to end. Come on. And we actually got the win there. Even though we came out of concealment first, interestingly enough. We still got the win because Athalia really just such a nice damage dealer. The Thaleen here, the problem with the Thaleen is she is really good with her reviving and everything, and you can see, like, even though we have the resurrection part, you can see how long the concealment of those lasted. It's still just very nice damage to add to the team, which works just a little bit better in my opinion than just using the Thaleen. So very cool that we got the win there. And with that, we are now looking into beating those teams. And I mean, one way we just saw already, having the better Wilder comp, that can work. Mirror matches can work if you have a Paragon advantage, and a mirror match can work if you can set a better Wilder comp, that can work. But that is not fun. So let's take a look at a team that can also beat this Wilder comp, and does so at a very much so less Wilder reliant way. So this is the team that I made for this to beat the Wilder comp. It is indeed relying on the Graveborn tile. One thing that we have to do just in general when fighting those teams with a non-Wilder comp, we have to counter that Stormstrike spell. If we don't counter that Stormstrike spell, this artifact is just going to end us. This artifact, in my opinion, still was made with the sole design to give demand to Siren. And Siren, you really want him to counter this. I mean, they succeeded with making an artifact that is such a big threat that you want to counter it this time, most definitely. So what we have in here is definitely Siren. And then we have to kind of survive, because we can't really do more than sit out the damage, get rid of those 3 heroes and wait for the concealment to wear off. And this takes quite some time because, well, the concealment gets buffed throughout the stages. We have 10 seconds here. If they get a defeat, then it will be a little bit enhanced. And the only thing that we can really do is outlast them. And there are 3 specific heroes that are used for this. Callan, first of all, is probably the biggest asset to surviving early burst in a fight. Then we have Ludovic. Ludovic, the most potent PvP healer in my opinion, unaffected, and at the, with a little bit of stun, and then also instant heal at the start of the battle, very valuable. And then we have Hugin. Hugin just provides the little bit of extra shield that we need to go through this, plus a little bit of attack boost. Plus in this fight he is faster to get to his ult than our Siren, so he takes the Lily May counter. And then we have Thorin. Thorin, also very nice tank, makes our Callan a little bit more tanky as well. We're using Stormstrike spell here to enhance our damage, and you can see how this looks, starting off with the Callan instant ult at the start of the battle, making us a little bit more tanky. You can see how much less damage we really get there. Counter there on the Hugin, we come in with the ult, Siren nearly dying, keeping alive with the shield. Look how much shield we got there. And we win this without a single defeated hero. That is really the power of this team. And we win at a Paragon disadvantage. That is the next thing. We have a Paragon disadvantage. We have two P2 heroes right here. He has a P3 and a Celestial P3. So Celestial P3, I think even a little bit higher. I don't think I have a P3 right now, but if I remember correctly, it's a little bit higher even in terms of inspiration and intimidation. So we win at a Paragon disadvantage, which is kind of very, very cool with a very strong team. Let's watch that again. And granted, this has two heroes from the new season, one hero from... One or two heroes? One hero, I think, from the last season. I think Ludovic was from the season before. And Callan, of course, a hero not many summoned for. But for me, gaining ever so more value in PvP just for the extra survivability can be so huge. And yeah, pretty clean team to fight those teams, in my opinion. You can use that whenever you want, and to fight like all of those wilder teams will work fairly well. So this is how the team looks like on this map. Ideally, the Callan would be a little bit more centered, but for this one I noticed well the Ludovic, he sometimes puts his heel not really on the Siren, and with this positioning it just turns out it worked a little bit better just to get the heal from Ludovic on Siren. So that is something that you can definitely use. Another hero that is super valuable to fight those wilder comps, and we actually talked a second about her already, is Athalia. Athalia has the big advantage that she has huge burst. Huge burst works very well because if you can take out heroes like Tazi, or we also talked about Hewen, for example, if you can take out those heroes, just get a one-shot on them, we can break the concealment of the enemy team early. And while the rest of the team here is fairly similar, we also include the Callan once again to get extra survivability on the rest of our team, because we don't want that Storm Strike to steamroll or to have the enemy steamroll through our team. And we need to get a few seconds. That is really the goal here. We need to get a few seconds, and not many heroes can actually do that. Hewen, for example, would be too slow. Damien probably would summon his card, which would immediately get destroyed. So we have a high damage environment where we have to sustain. And then we can use a huge burst to get through this team. And we can see Athalia coming in here. We get a huge burst there. And we also get rid of that Tazi in a second. There we go, another kill there on the Tazi. Couldn't get the overkill, sadly, on this one. The shout from the Callan can be valuable. The only problem with that is if the enemy is still invincible, they will actually not sustain any CC effect from the shout there. But Athalia makes sure in this situation, even in her Lance form, that we get to take out every single enemy that revives at the quickest possible pace, so they deal the lowest damage to us that can happen. So we also don't spread the Bonnie damage too much around, and overall this team could just sustain enough to actually get through the enemy lines, and Athalia is such a good damage dealer for that, because for one, we can get the one-shots, probably not with the P2 because we have too much of a Paragon disadvantage here, and there is the damage reduction rivalry stat. This one, I mean, so whenever a hero with a lower Paragon hits a hero with a higher Paragon, they actually will do less damage to that hero by quite a big amount. So a little bit tougher for us to get a one-shot on higher Paragon heroes, but still nonetheless we deal a ton of damage and are able to take them out quickly, and that is a strategy that can also work. So this is just the go-to there for the wilder teams, how to build them, which heroes you want to use, and how to counter them as well with hopefully an interesting team for you to use. And maybe if you have Callan, could be a very interesting way to also set this up in a Supreme Arena teammate. And then there is one more thing I want to show you, and this is of course our sponsor for the video, Lootbar. Lootbar is your #1 source for Dragon Crystals for AFK Journey, and down in the description you will actually find a link that when you go through that and register on the website, you get another 3% discount coupon on top of an 8% discount coupon you get for registering, and can save extra money on those Dragon Crystals, and they are cheap anyway already. You can see $75 there, it's pretty cheap. And beyond that, at the moment we're running a giveaway on the Discord that was provided to me by Lootbar. And what they are going to do is they provided me with a link, and if you go through the link on my Discord and you buy the Sunrise Passage, which is the great package that we have at the moment for the anniversary, This one where you can see it's a ton of loot. There are 30 stellar crystals, we got 10 rosy crystals, we got 100 temporal essence and this wonderful frog skin. If you buy that through the link that is on my Discord, then 2 people will be selected and they will get an $8.50 coupon back, which essentially makes this then free for you. You can use that on the next one that arrives. Maybe there is another noble path. It will probably be a big one again for next season. You can just buy that then with this coupon for free. So you basically get the second passage on top. 2 people will be selected. Winning chances, I was just checking it out, still very, very good. That much I can promise you. And other than that, I would say thank you for watching the video. I hope it helps you fight those pesky wilder comps, and if you have any questions left, then please ask me down in the comments. Tell me what's your experience with the wilder tiles. Is that something that annoyed you? For me personally, most definitely. Hoping for the next season to have not that cheesy faction skill. Other than that, I wish you a great day. We'll see us in the next one.